listen, we've been on this journey together. We started like last September, I started covering ballot measure 114.
Weapons ban is constitutional. So we know dangerous and unusual weapons are outside the scope altogether.
State's constitution. Supporters of Measure 114 say their fight doesn't end with the ruling.
Predisposed to put criminals in jail. And finally, liberal district attorneys.
Judge Ratio today has issued a permanent injunction enjoining all of ballot measure 114.
In a groundbreaking development, the much-debated House mag ban faces a seismic shift as it gets struck down and ruled unconstitutional, reshaping the landscape of arm regulations. A victory for Second Amendment rights. The recent development in Oregon, specifically the ruling against Measure 114, which involved arms purchase permits and the state's mag ban, marks a significant win for Second Amendment advocates. The state court judge, Robert Ratio, issued a permanent injunction declaring the measure unconstitutional and striking it down entirely. Measure 114 implemented a statewide permit to purchase and a mag ban in Oregon. The court case, Arnold v. Kotek, a state lawsuit under the Oregon state constitution, saw the judge's final decision in favor of the plaintiffs, particularly the gun owners of America who filed the lawsuit. The ruling signifies a crucial victory for those challenging restrictive arm regulations. The case involved a temporary win when the judge extended a temporary restraining order preventing the permit scheme and the mag ban from going into effect. This preliminary injunction was a crucial step in preventing Measure 114 from being fully implemented, offering a temporary relief pending a final ruling. Now, with the judge's comprehensive decision on the merits of the case, Measure 114 has been deemed unconstitutional in its entirety. This ruling not only addresses the specific concerns of the Arnold case, but also sets a precedent against similar restrictive measures. The judge's issuance of a permanent injunction emphasizes the lasting impact of the decision, ensuring that the unconstitutional measures remain permanently barred. Oregon Measure 114 required individuals purchasing arms to obtain a permit, involving mandatory safety training, background checks, fingerprinting, and ID verification. Additionally, it restricted the buying, selling, or transferring of arms unless the recipient possessed a valid permit. The ruling against this measure represents a significant victory for individual Second Amendment rights, as it rejects the notion of burdensome restrictions on law-abiding citizens. In supposition, the ruling against Oregon Measure 114, as highlighted in the video, signifies a substantial win for Second Amendment advocates. It not only addresses the specific concerns raised in the Arnold v. Kotek case, but also serves as a precedent against similar restrictive measures. The decision emphasizes the importance of safeguarding individual rights and sets the stage for continued advocacy for the Second Amendment. Measure 114 struck down. Oregon Measure 114 was a comprehensive arms regulation that required individuals to obtain a permit for purchasing arms. The permit process involved stringent requirements, including background checks, fingerprinting, and completion of a training course. This rule extended to all private party transfers and transactions, creating a substantial barrier for individuals seeking to acquire arms legally. To obtain the permit, individuals had to submit an application to their local police chief, county sheriff, or relevant authority. This application process was accompanied by a series of requirements, including background checks, fingerprinting, and completion of a training course. Additionally, applicants were obligated to pay fees, adding a financial component to the already rigorous process. The implementation of such a permitting system was a significant development, as it extended beyond standard background checks to include additional steps that could potentially deter law-abiding citizens from exercising their Second Amendment rights. However, Measure 114 did not solely focus on the permit to purchase. It introduced a second significant restriction by imposing a ban on the sale, purchase, transfer, and possession of standard capacity mags. This prohibition came into effect after the measure's effective date, with a future ban on mags capable of holding more than 10 rounds. The measure included a provision for mags owned before the effective date to be grandfathered in, but the overall impact was a substantial limitation on the types of mags individuals could legally possess.
State's constitution. Supporters of Measure 114 say their fight doesn't end with the ruling.
predisposed to put criminals in jail. And finally, liberal district attorneys.
Licensing requirement. And then section 11 was your magazine capacity, okay?
It was certainly one of them. President Biden's self-inflicted border crisis continues to wreak havoc across the country.
Declaring the 2022 ballot measure 114 unconstitutional.
One major challenge with Measure 114 was its impractical implementation within the original deadline set for December 8th of the previous year. This logistical issue prompted multiple lawsuits, both at the federal and state levels, challenging the measure's constitutionality. The specific focus is on the state lawsuit, Arnold v. Kotek, filed by the Gun Owners of America. This legal challenge utilized the state of Oregon's constitution as a basis for contesting Measure 114. The federal court judge in a federal lawsuit issued a temporary halt on the permitting scheme, preventing it from going into effect for 30 days from the original December 8th deadline. This temporary relief was a significant development, providing a brief window during which the permit requirements were suspended pending further legal proceedings. The culmination of these legal challenges resulted in a decisive victory for Second Amendment advocates. The state court judge, Robert Raccio, issued a permanent injunction, deeming Measure 114 unconstitutional in its entirety. This ruling not only addressed the immediate concerns raised in the Arnold case, but also set a precedent against similar restrictive measures. In decision, the complexities of Oregon Measure 114, its implications on Second Amendment rights, and the subsequent legal challenges underscore the ongoing debate surrounding arm regulations. The state court's decision to strike down the measure permanently emphasizes the importance of protecting individual rights while navigating the legal intricacies of state and federal laws. Recent development. In the ongoing legal battle over Oregon Measure 114, the recent development involves a significant win for Second Amendment advocates. This highlights the series of legal actions taken, including an outright TRO and a preliminary injunction issued by Judge Robert Raccio of the Harney County Circuit Court in Oregon. The focus shifts to the final decision, where the judge issues a permanent injunction, declaring Measure 114 unconstitutional in its entirety. The legal process began with the filing of the Arnold v. Kotek state lawsuit by the Gun Owners of America against Measure 114. This lawsuit targeted the state's permit to purchase requirement and the mag ban, arguing their unconstitutionality under both state and federal laws. Initially, the judge granted a TRO, temporarily halting the permit scheme and the mag ban. This provided a brief relief period during which the restrictions were suspended. Following the TRO, a preliminary injunction was issued, signaling a temporary halt on Measure 114. The pivotal moment arrived with Judge Robert Raccio's final decision, in which he issued a permanent injunction against Measure 114. The judge determined that the measure, encompassing the permit to purchase and the mag ban, was facially unconstitutional under the Oregon Constitution Article 1, Section 27. In the court's order, it stated that the permanent injunction aimed to prevent the undue burden of Measure 114 on current and prospective arm owners who have the right to lawfully possess arms for self-defense and protection against imminent threats of harm. This final decision by the state court judge is a substantial victory for those challenging the restrictive measures imposed by Measure 114. The judge's reliance on both federal law, using the BR method, and the Oregon state constitution underscores the thorough examination of the case. The decision to strike down Measure 114 in its entirety reflects a comprehensive analysis of its constitutionality. Looking ahead, questions are raised about the potential actions the state of Oregon might take in response to this ruling. It is anticipated that the state will appeal the decision, seeking to take the case to the Oregon State Supreme Court. The legal battle is likely to continue, with the state aiming to litigate the constitutionality of Measure 114 at the highest level. While this might be an avenue the state explores, the judge's clear and declarative language in issuing a permanent injunction suggests a formidable legal stance against the measure. The impact of a temporary stay would depend on the legal proceedings and the ultimate resolution of the case. In assumption, the final decision by Judge Robert Raccio to permanently enjoin Measure 114 represents a significant victory for Second Amendment rights. The ruling underscores the importance of challenging restrictive arm regulations through legal avenues and the role of state constitutions in protecting individual rights. The legal battle is poised to continue, shaping the landscape of arm regulations in Oregon. Legal battle ensues. The recent decision by Judge Robert Rashio to block the implementation of Oregon's Measure 114, passed in November 2022, has stirred controversy and legal debates. The provisions of the measure, which included mandatory safety courses, background checks, and a ban on mags holding over 10 rounds of ammunition, had been under scrutiny since last December, when Judge Rashio blocked them from taking effect pending a full trial. The recent ruling, following a 6-day trial held in September, reinforces the injunction against Measure 114, preventing its implementation unless a higher state court decides otherwise. Judge Rashio's decision is grounded in his belief that Oregon citizens have a fundamental right to self-defense against imminent threats of harm, a right he argues is unduly burdened by the provisions of Measure 114. In his written statement, Rashio contends that the restrictions imposed by the measure diminish public safety, signaling his concern for the impact of these laws on the ability of individuals to protect themselves. However, Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum vehemently disagrees with the judge's ruling. In a statement issued on Tuesday afternoon, she expressed her strong opposition, asserting that the judge's decision is incorrect and, more critically, puts the lives of Oregonians at risk. Rosenblum announced the state's intention to file an appeal, expressing confidence that they will ultimately prevail in their efforts to uphold Measure 114. Measure 114, which passed by a narrow margin, introduced stringent requirements for arm purchases. It mandated individuals to complete a safety course, pass a test, and undergo a background check to obtain a permit for arm purchase. Additionally, the measure imposed a ban on mags capable of holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition.
The federal government cares about this case because this law has posed substantial threats to public safety.
Go do the reading yourself. The judge did get into very, very thorough, detailed.
Just dealing with all these threshold issues, they're asking things that are extraordinary departures from this court's jurisprudence again and again and again.
Similar protections than the Second Amendment. So you do have benefits there.
Judge Rashio's declaration that all these provisions are unconstitutional forms the crux of the legal dispute. His assertion challenges the constitutionality of measures aimed at enhancing arm safety and regulating arm ownership. The legal battle, which has been ongoing since last December, underscores the deep-seated divisions on arm control issues, with proponents of Measure 114 emphasizing the importance of safety measures and opponents framing them as an infringement on Second Amendment rights. The impending appeal promises to prolong the legal wrangling over Measure 114 as the state seeks to overturn Judge Rashio's decision. The outcome of this legal battle could have broader implications, not only for Oregon, but also for the ongoing national conversation surrounding arm control measures. The case highlights the delicate balance between individual rights and public safety, leaving the courts to navigate the complex terrain of constitutional interpretation and societal concerns. Legal challenges. The legal challenges to Oregon's new arm laws, encapsulated in Measure 114, have led to a complex and contentious legal battle unfolding in both federal and state courts. Immediately after the laws were passed, challenges emerged, and the legal landscape has been shaped by a series of rulings and appeals, showcasing the intricacies of constitutional interpretation and historical context. Earlier this year, U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut delivered a crucial ruling affirming the legality of the laws under the U.S. Constitution. However, this decision faced an appeal and is currently under scrutiny by the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, adding a layer of federal consideration to the state-level legal dispute. A pivotal aspect of the legal discourse revolves around the interpretation of the Oregon Constitution, which provides protection for arms that were either in common use in 1859, the year the state constitution was enacted, or are considered clear modern-day equivalents. The historical context of arms in Oregon during the mid-19th century became a focal point during the state trial, as attorneys for individuals contesting Measure 114 sought to establish the presence of advanced arms during that era. Witnesses, including Ashley Libinski, a former curator at the Cody Arms Museum in Wyoming, were called to testify about the availability and functionality of arms in the mid-19th century. Lubinsky's testimony highlighted the existence of early arms capable of firing multiple rounds without the need for reloading, as well as various makes and models that accommodated over 10 rounds or utilized mag-style feeding devices. However, she acknowledged that many of these advanced arms were relatively rare in the U.S. during that period. The legal battle underscores the nuanced considerations surrounding the interpretation of constitutional provisions related to arms. The question of what constitutes a clear modern-day equivalent becomes central to the argument, requiring an examination of historical context, technological advancements, and the prevalence of specific arm features during the relevant time frame. The fact that the legal challenges have traversed both federal and state courts emphasizes the multi-layered nature of the dispute. While federal courts consider the constitutionality of the laws under the U.S. Constitution, state courts delve into the intricacies of the Oregon Constitution and its historical framework. The appeal to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals introduces an additional dimension to the legal proceedings, as federal judges assess the broader constitutional implications. The outcome of this appeal could have repercussions not only for Oregon, but also for the broader national discourse on arm regulations, as decisions from federal appellate courts can set precedents that influence legal interpretations in other jurisdictions. Indecision. The legal challenges surrounding Oregon's Measure 114 reflect a nuanced exploration of historical constitutional protections, particularly in the context of evolving arm technology. The testimony of witnesses, such as Ashley Lubinsky, adds depth to the examination of advanced arms during the mid-19th century, raising questions about their prevalence and the scope of constitutional protections. The ongoing appeal to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals signals that the legal battle is far from over, and the resolution will likely influence discussions on constitutional interpretations and contemporary arm control efforts. Expert testimonies clash. The legal battle surrounding Oregon's Measure 114, which includes provisions such as mandatory safety courses, background checks, and a ban on high-capacity mags, has taken an intriguing turn with conflicting expert testimonies regarding the historical context of arms in the mid-19th century. The dispute, now in both federal and state courts, pivots on the constitutional protection of arms that were in common use in 1859, the year Oregon's Constitution was ratified. A key figure in the legal proceedings is Ashley Lubinsky. Lubinsky asserted that there were numerous early arms capable of firing multiple rounds without reloading, as well as various makes and models that could hold over 10 rounds or utilized mag-style feeding devices. She argued that these advanced arms had been tested for centuries, and their development was a focus for arms companies in the mid-1800s.
Do you know about ammunition history? But I am actually a firearms and ammunition historian. I have a master's degree.
The Supreme Court heard arguments today on the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which is a new law.
Listen, we've been on this journey together. We started last September. I started covering ballot measure 114.
The Supreme Court heard both sides of the argument for the Second Amendment Preservation Act. On one side,
Judge Ratio today has issued a permanent injunction enjoining all of ballot measure 114.
However, U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut, in her July ruling deeming Measure 114 federally constitutional, dismissed Lubinsky's testimony, stating that she lacked the necessary background and training as a historian. Immergut further raised concerns about Lubinsky's professional and personal ties to pro-arm groups and the arms industry, questioning her neutrality as an expert witness. This conflicting assessment of Lubinsky's testimony highlights the challenge of determining the credibility of expert witnesses in legal proceedings. While one judge found her convincing and relied on her insights to rule against Measure 114, another judge dismissed her as lacking the expertise and neutrality required for such testimony. In response, attorneys for the Oregon Department of Justice defending the new laws presented two professors with expertise in the history of arms in late 18th and 19th century America. These experts argued that despite the well-armed nature of the American colonies and the U.S. during that period, repeating arms and those capable of holding multiple rounds were considered extremely uncommon and vanishingly rare. Brian DeLay, a University of California, Berkeley history professor, specializing in the arms trade in Revolutionary War-era America, expressed skepticism about the framers of Oregon's Constitution foreseeing the future of arms technology. This stance suggests that even if advanced arms existed, they were not widespread enough to be considered in common use, a critical criterion for constitutional protection under Oregon law. The conflicting narratives presented by expert witnesses underscore the complexity of legal debates surrounding constitutional interpretations and historical contexts. The evaluation of expert testimony involves not only assessing the individual's qualifications, but also considering potential biases that may impact their neutrality in the case. The legal battle over Measure 114 continues to navigate this intricate terrain, with conflicting expert opinions contributing to the complexity of the constitutional and historical analysis. The outcome of this legal saga will not only impact the specific provisions of Measure 114, but could also set precedents for similar debates over the intersection of constitutional rights and evolving technology in the realm of arms regulation. Oregon Arms Measure Analysis. The legal battle over Oregon's Measure 114 has delved into a nuanced exploration of arms technology, constitutional history, and the practical implications of restrictive measures. At the heart of the dispute is the constitutional protection of arms, specifically the provisions of Measure 114, which include mandatory safety courses, background checks, and a ban on high-capacity mags. The crux of the argument revolves around whether the framers of Oregon's Constitution, ratified in 1859, could have anticipated the technological advancements in arms that occurred in the subsequent years. Judge Robert Ratio, in his recent decision, expressed skepticism about foreseeing developments like smokeless powder, detachable cartridges, and automatic reloading. He acknowledged the profound ruptures in arms technology brought about by semi-auto and automatic advancements, making it challenging to believe that individuals in the late 1850s could have predicted such innovations. However, Ratio contended that the constitutional delegates of Oregon would have been aware of technological progress in arms during their time. This assertion implies that while the framers might not have predicted specific advancements, they were cognizant of ongoing developments in arms technology. The trial also featured testimony from law enforcement officials, including 2 sheriffs and the Oregon State Police Superintendent, highlighting the practical implications of high-capacity mags. Despite Measure 114 exempting law enforcement from the mag ban, the sheriffs emphasized the importance of such mags in their large jurisdictions where response times can be lengthy. They cited instances where armed civilians provided cover during incidents and highlighted the use of arms for protection against predators. Ratio's decision underscored the citizens' need for immediate self-defense, particularly in situations where law enforcement response times might be delayed. He argued that victims could be left without a timely law enforcement response, emphasizing the immediacy of citizens' need to protect themselves and their property. The trial also saw tense exchanges between Ratio and Dr. Michael Siegel, a Tufts University epidemiologist, regarding the effectiveness of different arms laws. Siegel presented data indicating a significant increase in armed homicides in Oregon since 2001, with a doubling of casualties and mass slayings involving large-capacity mags. However, Ratio questioned the scientific validity of Siegel's testimony under Oregon's evidence laws and emphasized the need for demonstrable evidence that high-capacity mag bans result in fewer armed demises. One of the key points of contention in the trial was the definition of readily in the context of modifying mags to hold more than 10 rounds. The plaintiffs demonstrated that such modifications could be easily achieved with common tools, while state attorneys argued that the majority of 10-round mags on the market required additional tools for expansion. In supposition, the legal proceedings surrounding Measure 114 have delved into the complexities of constitutional interpretation, technological evolution, and the practical impact of arms regulations. Judge Ratio's decision reflects a nuanced assessment of these factors, balancing historical considerations with contemporary realities and emphasizing the need for evidence-based arguments in shaping arms laws. Mag modification legalities. The recent legal developments in Oregon's arm regulations, particularly Measure 114, have brought the clarity of language and constitutional interpretation into focus. The controversy hinges on the definition of readily in the context of modifying mags to hold more than 10 rounds, and whether such modifications render the mag readily convertible under the law. Judge Robert Ratio, in his recent decision, rejected the argument that a mag is readily convertible only if an individual already possesses an extended mag. He emphasized that the law requires a person to actually have an extension in their personal possession, not merely the potential to obtain one in the future. Ratio's stance diverged from the interpretation accepted by U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut, who had previously ruled that a mag is not readily convertible until the base plate is removed. Immergut's reasoning centered on the notion that a 10-round capacity mag cannot be readily converted without the individual taking affirmative steps, such as removing the base plate. She argued that the law is not void for vagueness simply because an individual could take actions to approach the legal limit. Her decision highlighted the importance of tangible modifications, such as removing the base plate, for a mag to be considered readily convertible. Ratio, however, remained unconvinced by the nearly identical testimony and held that arms components, including the mag, are protected under the state constitution. His decision asserted that without a mag, the remaining components of an arm do not qualify as an arm. Ratio's perspective reflects a historical contextualization, suggesting that the constitutional delegates and voters of 1857 would recognize today's arms as direct descendants of those they possessed, incorporating multi-shot and repeater technologies.
Weapons ban is constitutional. So we know dangerous and unusual weapons are outside the scope altogether.
Figures. And this is something that we should celebrate, that today's gun owner is looking a little bit less like me and more like the rest of America.
Changed so significantly since 1791.
So yes, just a bit, right?
Uphold and defend the Constitution, and he's calling me and my industry, which provides the law enforcement and the military their fighting.
Persuasive, the things like analogies to regulations of Bowie knives and billy clubs and slung shots.
The implications of Ratio's decision are significant as it maintains the blocking of the new laws from taking effect. The ruling signals a divergence in legal interpretation, setting the stage for potential appeals to the Oregon Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. The crux of this legal battle lies in the nuanced understanding of language and constitutional intent. The term readily convertible becomes a focal point, with differing interpretations leading to conflicting legal outcomes. As this legal saga continues, the courts will grapple with questions of constitutional protection, historical context, and the practical implications of legislative language. The ultimate resolution will have broader implications for the interpretation and application of arm regulations, not only in Oregon, but potentially influencing legal discourse in other jurisdictions as well. Public response and reactions. The announcement of the Oregon House's mag ban being struck down and ruled unconstitutional has triggered a range of responses from the public, sparking discussions on social media, within communities, and among advocacy groups. The decision, delivered by Judge Robert Ratio, has drawn attention not only from Oregon residents, but also from individuals across the nation who closely follow developments in arm regulations. Among the immediate reactions is a sense of relief and celebration from Second Amendment advocates and arm rights supporters. Many view the ruling as a significant victory for individual freedoms and the right to bear arms. Social media platforms have become a hub for expressions of support and encouragement, with individuals sharing the news and celebrating the court's decision as a safeguard against what they perceive as overreaching arm restrictions. Conversely, those in favor of stricter arm control measures and supporters of the now overturned mag ban express disappointment and concern. Advocacy groups that champion increased arm regulations emphasize the need for measures to enhance public safety and prevent mass shootings. The ruling has ignited debates on the balance between individual rights and collective security, with differing opinions on how such regulations impact overall public safety.
To the newsroom, California cannot ban gun owners from having detachable magazines.
Having high-capacity magazines. The judge says there's no American tradition of limiting ammunition capacity.
In March of last year, the Washington legislature passed a law banning the sale of ammo magazines that hold more than 10 rounds.
California cannot ban gun owners from having high-capacity gun magazines, a federal judge.
It is the bill Ferguson has been trying to get passed since 2016. That year, a 19-year-old used a high-capacity rifle.
For that 10 years we had it done, the number of mass shootings actually went down. But after Republicans let the law expire in 2004, and those weapons were allowed to be sold again.
The Gun Owners of America, which played a crucial role in challenging the ban through the Arnold versus Kotek case, has received widespread praise from those aligned with its mission. Supporters of GOA commend the organization for its dedication to defending Second Amendment rights and its success in the legal battle against Measure 114. The case exemplifies the importance of advocacy groups in influencing legal outcomes and shaping the trajectory of arm regulations. Local communities in Oregon are also engaged in discussions about the ruling's implications for their safety and rights. Town hall meetings, community forums, and online platforms serve as spaces for residents to share their perspectives, ask questions, and seek clarification on how the decision may affect them. There is an eagerness to understand the practical consequences of the ruling, especially considering that the mag ban had the potential to impact a wide range of arm owners. The ruling has sparked conversations about the role of the judiciary in interpreting and upholding constitutional rights. Individuals on both sides of the debate are reflecting on the significance of legal decisions in shaping the landscape of arm regulations. This case in particular highlights the intricate interplay between state laws, constitutional provisions, and the broader discourse on arm rights. As the news continues to circulate, it is anticipated that the public discourse will evolve, with individuals, organizations, and policymakers contributing to the ongoing conversation. The ruling's aftermath will likely see a heightened focus on legislative considerations, with discussions on potential amendments, revisions, or new proposals related to arm regulations in Oregon. The impact of the decision extends beyond the legal realm, permeating public consciousness and influencing the broader dialogue on the balance between individual liberties and societal safety. Expert testimonies and their impact. The recent legal victory in Oregon, where Measure 114's mag ban was ruled unconstitutional, hinged significantly on expert testimonies presented during the trial. These expert opinions played a pivotal role in shaping the court's understanding of arm technology, historical context, and the potential impact of the contested law on individuals' Second Amendment rights. One key expert witness was Ashley Lubinsky, a former curator at the Cody Arms Museum in Wyoming. Lubinsky's testimony focused on the historical aspects of arms in the mid-19th century, the time when Oregon's Constitution was established. She highlighted that many early arms were capable of firing multiple rounds without reloading, and some models had the capacity to hold over 10 rounds.
The state's ban on large-capacity magazines is set to take effect next month, but a new lawsuit.
The judge ruling that law was unconstitutional, but the ruling will not take effect immediately.
That we passed in 1994 with bipartisan support in Congress and the support of law enforcement. They sometimes feel outgunned by assault weapons with large-capacity magazines.
But California Attorney General Rob Bonta argues they aren't necessary for private self-defense.
Even law enforcement officials have told me and told other champions of this legislation.
However, the rarity of such arms in the U.S. during that era became a point of contention. Judge Robert Rashio, who presided over the case, found Lubinsky's testimony convincing. He considered her expertise valuable in establishing that multi-shot arms were not a novel concept in the mid-1800s, aligning with the argument that the framers of Oregon's Constitution would have been aware of these technological advancements. This played a crucial role in the court's decision to declare Measure 114 unconstitutional. However, it's important to note that not all experts' testimonies were viewed favorably by the courts. U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut, who had previously ruled on the federal constitutionality of Measure 114, expressed skepticism about Lubinsky's qualifications as an expert. Immergut questioned Lubinsky's status as a reliable witness, citing her lack of background and training as a historian. Immergut also raised concerns about Lubinsky's professional and personal ties to pro-arm groups and the arms industry, suggesting a potential bias. Despite this divergence in judicial opinions on the credibility of expert witnesses, the court ultimately weighed the evidence and arguments presented. The contrasting perspectives underscored the complexity of interpreting historical and technological contexts within the legal framework. The impact of expert testimonies extended beyond historical considerations. Tufts University epidemiologist Dr. Michael Siegel provided insights into the effectiveness of various arms laws, presenting statistical data related to armed homicides. However, Judge Ratio expressed reservations about the scientific validity of Siegel's testimony, highlighting that it didn't adhere to Oregon's evidence laws. Ratio emphasized the need for scientific validation and conclusive evidence demonstrating a direct link between high-capacity mag bans and a reduction in armed demises.
100 bullets that can be fired from that weapon. We should limit how many rounds a weapon can hold. Why in God's name? Well, we push for Congress to do more. 9 categories of semi-automatic weapons were included in that ban. We're going to centralize, accelerate, and intensify our work to save more lives more quickly. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
The court's scrutiny of expert testimony showcased the meticulous approach taken in evaluating the constitutionality of arm regulations. It emphasized the importance of expert qualifications, scientific rigor, and relevance to the legal context. The contrasting opinions among judges also highlighted the subjective nature of expert testimony interpretation within the legal system. In conclusion, expert testimonies played a crucial role in the legal battle against Measure 114's mag ban in Oregon. While Hlebinski's historical insights influenced the court's decision, the skepticism surrounding expert qualifications and the scientific basis of certain testimonies demonstrated the rigorous scrutiny applied by the judiciary. The case exemplifies the intricate interplay between historical context, technological advancements, and legal interpretations in shaping the landscape of arm regulations. Mag bans across states. The recent ruling in Oregon, striking down Measure 114's mag ban and declaring it unconstitutional, holds significance within the broader national context of varying arm regulations across states. Mag bans have been a subject of legislative debate and legal challenges in several states, reflecting the complex landscape of arm control measures in the United States. The controversy surrounding mag bans often revolves around the capacity limit imposed on mags, with the number of rounds considered acceptable varying from state to state. While some states, like Oregon prior to the legal victory, sought to restrict the possession of mags capable of holding more than 10 rounds, others have implemented different limitations or have no specific restrictions on mag capacity. States like California, New York, and New Jersey, among others, have implemented stringent mag capacity restrictions, often limiting them to 10 rounds or fewer. These restrictions aim to reduce the potential lethality of mass shootings by limiting the number of rounds a shooter can fire without reloading. However, the efficacy of such measures in achieving their intended goals remains a subject of debate. The legal landscape regarding mag bans is dynamic, with court decisions often shaping the implementation and enforcement of these regulations. The recent victory in Oregon, where Measure 114's mag ban was struck down, adds to a series of legal developments challenging the constitutionality of such restrictions. It signifies a pushback against what some see as overly restrictive measures, impinging on individuals' Second Amendment rights. In a broader national context, the differing approaches to mag bans underscore the decentralized nature of arm control regulations in the U.S. Each state has the authority to enact its own arm laws, leading to significant variations in the legal framework governing arm ownership and use. This decentralized approach reflects the diverse perspectives and priorities of individual states regarding public safety, individual rights, and the role of arms in society.
I know this has been a hobby horse of mine for a long time. Got it done once, like AK-47s and AR-15s. And in the 10 years it was law.
Tonight, President Biden announcing his first ever federal office of gun violence prevention.
And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Also ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country. 30-round magazines that let mass shooters fire hundreds of bullets in a matter of minutes.
The legal victory in Oregon may influence discussions and legal challenges in other states grappling with similar mag bans. It sets a precedent for legal arguments challenging the constitutionality of such restrictions, potentially emboldening Second Amendment advocates in other jurisdictions. Conversely, states with strict mag capacity limits may continue to defend their regulations, emphasizing public safety concerns and the need for preventive measures against mass shootings. In conclusion, the recent ruling in Oregon against Measure 114's mag ban adds a nuanced layer to the ongoing national discourse on arm regulations. Mag bans, with varying capacity limits, are part of the broader patchwork of state-level arm control measures. The legal developments in Oregon contribute to the evolving landscape of Second Amendment jurisprudence, prompting further debates and legal challenges on the constitutionality of mag restrictions across the United States. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.